Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today we're talking about Justin Trudeau and specifically his tyrannical tactics. We're going to go through a whole slew of them, an entire litany now that Canada has really sort of authorized and sort of welcomed in the new Emergency Act continuity plan, allowing what Justin Trudeau and the Canadian psychopaths have been doing to their own citizens to continue. And so we've got a lot to go through. We're going to start by reviewing what happened last night because there was a vote in Parliament and it didn't go Liberty's way. We're going to see what the vote actually turned out to be. And we're going to see what Justin Trudeau intends to do with that. And we're going to spend a lot of the day today spending some time sort of dissecting all of the back-end operations behind this tyrannical regime just to the north of us now. Our neighbors up there, our good friends, the Canadians, now living under, I think, sort of a pseudo-martial law where their federal government can go in and just sort of take things from people and even hold them without much cause. We're going to talk about Tamara Lich. She is a Freedom Trucker Convoy protester, somebody who was arrested and detained, denied bail by an Ottawa judge, and her name is Julie Bourgeoise, or the Bourgeoisie. Julie Bourgeoise, something like that. We're going to go into her background and see what she's all about because she is pals with our good friend, of course, who? Trudeau. Yeah, they're hanging out. They're buddies. In fact, Trudeau campaigned for this woman when she was going to be somebody running for elected office. And so we'll learn a little bit more about her before we change gears and talk about Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland, I found some interesting clips of this woman. This woman has been very aggressive going after the Freedom Trucker convoys, almost salivating, gleeful to some degree. Some people say glowing every time she comes out there and she says, yeah, we're taking your bank accounts. We're taking every single penny of you and your family. If they even looked at your Twitter account, did they like that post that you posted saying you supported the truckers? If they liked it, well, they're in my purview. They're within our jurisdiction. And so Chrystia Freeland, what is she all about? Where'd she come from? Because we have a lot of other clips of her hanging out with some very familiar faces, some people that we've talked a lot about here on this channel. Well, many years ago, she was palling around with them. So we'll go through that. You know who we're talking about, Schwab & Co. So we'll see what that is about. And then we've got our third little tyrannical dictator. We've got Jim Watson, the Ottawa mayor. He was out in front of the media saying, we should just take all of these truckers' property, all their trucks and basically everything they own and just sell it. It's ours now. Why? Because we passed the law. It's called the Emergencies Act that says your stuff is ours now. So they're going to be modifying those rules and basically trying to take the trucks away from the truckers. It's forfeiture and it's ours. Which, I guess is, at least they're not cutting the wires of the cars like we saw the RCMP do in other parts of Canada. So Jim Watson, little tyrant himself, going to be doing the same thing. And we've got a weird, bizarre Canadian MP, somebody who is saying Honk Honk is analogous. Well, I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube. I might get thrown out of here, but some Heil, Adolf, basically. Honk Honk means Heil Adolf, the artist. Not Hitler, a Hitler, the artist. We haven't heard from him in a while. Maybe we'll hear from him today. We've got a lot to get through in that segment, but then we're going to change gears and we're going to come on home to the US of A because the People's Convoy, the convoy to DC, seems like it is heating up. Remember that they're trying to sort of get things in motion before Joe Biden's address. The State of the Union's coming up, and that is, I think, March 1. And so the DC convoy is heating up. We're going to check in with some news reports from around the country, in particular Montana, where they're telling us that there is a lot of activity there. And they're going to be honking their way over to DC. And the DC Capitol Police know it, too. That's why they are fencing up the Capitol building from our very welcomed president, who is lawfully elected and totally legitimate. They're going to be barricading the entire Capitol building again. And so we've got a lot to get to. Now, before we jump into it, let's get a brief overview on what really is happening here. Remember, we like to zoom out before we zoom in, get a big picture, our bearings straight, as we like to say here. Let's take a quick review, make sure we're up to speed on all of Trudeau's tyrannical tactics. Many of these we've covered, several of these we will cover here today on the show. And so, of course, we started with him officially mislabeling his political opposition. Remember this, called them racist, misogynist, called them Confederates, Nazis, all sorts of very, very troubling labels that, of course, didn't apply. No evidence for any of that whatsoever. And so that was where we started. Then they started censoring the truckers. Basically, anything that was contrary to the official language, the official message that came out of Canada, boom, you're censored. You're not allowed to talk. We saw threats saying that they're going to exploit regulatory controls, cut off their licenses, get them thrown off of their insurance plans, make sure that it really hurts for the people, anybody who is even remotely involved. We saw that extended over to seizing financial capabilities. They wanted to go and seize, GoFundMe and Give, Send, Go, seizing crypto, seizing all sorts of wallets. I mean, the whole thing is just an absolute mess. And so they are continuing on. Then they issued the Emergencies Act, and the Emergencies Act came through. And then we've got here, eliminate warrant requirements for searches. We started to see the RCMP and many others were just going around looking into whatever they wanted, sort of invading people's privacy. Similarly, no additional cause requirements for arrest, right? As soon as the Emergency Act went into play, or we saw Tamara Lich and many others who all got arrested instantly. We also saw the exploitation of forfeiture laws. Now, we're going to see a lot more of this today. The exploitation of forfeiture laws, right? I sort of mentioned that at the start of the show. That's Jim Watson and the Ottawa mayor who's going to say, those are our trucks now. Those are ours. We get to keep those. And then, of course, today we'll learn more about Tamara Lich, who is being held without bail for a mischief charge. So I think that is without cause. Of course, if the arrest was out without cause, then of course the continued indefinite detention also without cause. And then because Trudeau is a continual tyrant, extended the state of emergency as we saw yesterday. And so now that we know sort of where we are in this chart, we're following the bouncing ball, as it were. We've got a lot to talk about. If you want to be a part of the show, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. There is a comments thread right over there. We're going to get to those here at the end of the show. We also have a new GIF. We've got GIFs here. If you support us on YouTube, you get access to these GIFs. We've got the Canada GIF down there. Of course, we still have our honorary Canadian flag here. If you're a member on YouTube, the longer you're a member, the cooler your badges become. It's sort of honorary thing, very neat. And so, of course, I would appreciate it if you did join to support the show either on Locals or on YouTube. It's right next to that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed, and I really do appreciate it. Let's get into it then, shall we? Justin Trudeau, the little tiny dictator up there just north of the United States, got his way in Canadian Parliament, and they extended the Emergency Act continuously. We are going to see exactly how that vote looked on the floor of Canadian Parliament, but let's take a listen to this gentleman. His name is Pierre Poilievre, I believe, which I think is just outstanding to have your name Pierre Poilievre or something like that. He is going to be detailing for us before the vote the consequences of this vote. And I want you to listen to this language that he is using because it is very doom and gloom, right? He's saying, look, this is the authoritarian power that our government is about to give to itself. Please, please stop that from happening. Of course, it didn't work, but this is what he is saying. And what's so powerful about this statement is where he is standing. He's on the streets in Ottawa. He's standing right in front of Parliament Hill. This is the scene of, quote, the emergency that Parliament in Canada was going to vote on. And let's listen to his argument.
In mere moments, members of Parliament will vote on whether to apply the never-before-used Emergencies Act, giving government unprecedented powers to crack down on your freedom of expression and even freeze your bank account if you've donated to a political cause that they deem arbitrarily to violate their objectives. I'm against this bill.
Good.
So what's it really here for? Well, the Prime Minister said that it's to halt the blockades. Well, the blockades ended at the border crossings across Canada before he even announced this act. He went on to say it's because truckers were parked on streets in front of Parliament Hill. Well, as you can see, there are no more truckers parked
No
here.
trucks.
In fact, downtown Ottawa has never been more tranquil than it is right now. So with things being so peaceful enough for me to stand right in the middle of this street, what is the real agenda in giving government these extraordinary powers? Well, the agenda, of course, is the same as that Justin Trudeau has had from the beginning of the pandemic, and that is to use crises and fear to take more power for himself. Powers neither he nor any other politician has any business deploying on a peaceful citizenry.
All right, so we'll leave it there, but you can see now the chat is telling me, hey, this guy, he posted that video after they already voted, and so a little bit too late. Now, I agree with that very, very much. I think that's an astute observation. Okay, a lot of these politicians are now coming out of the woodwork and saying, well, this is crazy. We object to this. This is nonsense. But it's the same politicians who are still sort of saying, well, it's only 15 days. It's only a mandate. It's only do the right thing, right? All of the same people now who are going to stand up are all late to the party. They're all just joining I think the right side of righteousness. And they were nowhere to be found when the snowball was a lot smaller and it was rolling down the hill. People like me and many of you were screaming from the rooftops, this is insane. Why should the government ever have the opportunity or the ability to lock you in your homes or make you do anything? Nonsense. But a lot of the politicians back then, it's just something that we have to do, be a good citizen. And so I don't know, Canadian politics, right? I'm just sort of late to the party on this one myself. But here, I'm going to guess that many of these people weren't screaming from the rooftops, shouting about the encroachment of tyranny back when it could have been stopped. Now they're, making videos 3 minutes before the stinking vote takes place, and it's all too little too late. So we'll see a lot more of that. And we got to pay close attention to that as all of these people now start to stand up and say, I want to join the cause of liberty. But in the meantime, the last 18 months, soon to be 2 years, soon to be 24 months, and ongoing many continual months, because this thing is not going to end anytime soon. They're all going to say, we're now with you. Well, we'll see. So this is what the vote actually looked like in Canada. This is when, it's that scene from Star Wars where I think it's Padme. She's like, democracy dies to thunderous applause. This is what it looks like in Canada, just north of us.
Yeas pour 185, 185. Nays contre 151, 151.
I declare the motion carried.
185 to 151. It gets passed. And you get this guy, Trudeau, who is now going to be, so he actually said this yesterday, but this was before the vote. Now he knows the vote's going to pass. And I made a video about this yesterday, but I want to play this again, right? Now that this has passed, this is what he is saying. Things are essentially over, but they're not over. We're going to continue this. The emergency is not over, folks, until I say it is, all right? I'm in charge now, and we just got the votes to support it.
Third and CBC.
Do we still need the Emergencies Act?
Yes, we do. He's shaking his head.
Parliament Hill has been cleared. Do we still need it?
As I said, the Emergencies Act is not something to undertake lightly, and it's something that needs to be momentary, temporary, and proportional.
Well, it hasn't
That's
been.
Why every single day,
none of those
I'm
things.
Receiving briefings, and we are reflecting on how much longer the Emergencies Act needs to be in place. We don't want to keep it in place a single day longer than necessary.
What?
But even though the blockades are lifted across border openings right now, even though things seem to be resolving very well in Ottawa, this state of emergency is not over.
You had your
there
opposition.
There continues to be real concerns about the coming days, but we will continue to evaluate every single day whether or not it is time and we are able to lift this state of emergency.
Yeah, so can I keep reconsidering it?
Turn to Minister.
Yeah, everything is over except I still want this power. And we're very concerned about things in the upcoming days. It's going to be proportional. It absolutely hasn't. It's going to be geographically targeted. Absolutely hasn't. It's going to be temporary. No, it has not. Because his oppositional party leader, Pierre Poilievre, was out there and he was standing in the streets of that street that's right in front of Parliament Hill saying, not a truck in sight. In fact, there was one car on the road and you had the Nazi police out there who were following him around to make sure it wasn't a trucker. So it's basically over, and he is now going to continue it, as they've done in the United States. We had our January 6th was 4 hours, and they're squeezing 18 months out of it so far. So just getting warmed up there in Canada. Now, as this goes on, my goodness, Justin Trudeau, he recognizes that things can get heated, things can get fired up from time to time. And so he's going to ask his fellow Canadians and the rest of the people in the world to just calm things down a little bit, act with a sense of decency as we're going through the destruction of Western democracy. And then we're going to compare and contrast this with yet another example of Justin Trudeau's decent police. Made a video about this late last night, going through several other decent police officers beating the hell out of their own citizens. Here we have another one. This is Justin Trudeau encouraging decency after he spent an entire month or so belittling his own citizens. Let's listen.
In the heat of the moment, we can all get carried away trying to win an argument. But not every single conversation has to be about winning an argument. Sometimes it's more important to just be there for one another.
This guy.
As a country, let's aim for more decency in our public discourse, not less. Let's cherish the democracy that we have, and let's commit ourselves every day to working together to make it even better. Merci.
This guy, he was calling them Nazis and racists and saying that they were foreign insurrectionists, right? He didn't even talk to them at all. And so now he's going to tell everybody to be decent and just call somebody, hey, pal, just how you doing? Well, not good. Our federal government just took all my funds. They took my livelihood. They canceled my license, all because I was speaking out, all because I donated $100 like the lady who used to work there in Ottawa. Donated $100, you're fired. Why? I guess there is no free association at all in Canada anymore. And so Justin Trudeau is preaching about decency, very decent. Man, he wants to see more of that. Here is an example of some of his goons out there being very decent. This footage shows one of the many police beatings that took place in Ottawa during the crackdown. It was shot this morning by a bystander. That was 2 days ago. The guy's name is, the bystander's named Brian Kanabrowski. Here's what that looked like. The decent police rounding everybody up. And you can see, we're not going to have any audio. And you see him walking down there, and sort of, he's on the ground. A couple knees. 1, 2, 3. Got the whole body weight in there. Nice. Perfect. Good job. Yeah, so 3 other guys are there on top of him. Probably illegally resisting. So that must be the decency that Trudeau is talking about. So as Trudeau continues to exercise his emergency powers, he's going to continue to conduct arrests. Remember, just a few weeks ago, before this Emergencies Act was in place, he didn't have the authority to do this. Why? Because the citizenry retained a lot of their protections. There were principles in place, like people have to be arrested when there's probable cause, when there's justification for the arrest. Before the Emergencies Act, they couldn't do that. They couldn't find any laws that they were breaking. They were trying to cite them for parking tickets, and they were trying to, twist themselves into a pretzel to come up with some sort of justification for it. But now, because they don't need those things, because they stripped the people of their privileges against government incursions, they're able to do things like this. This is Tamara Lich. Tamara Lich is somebody who is a Freedom Trucker Convoy protester, somebody who was there highly involved in the thing. She got arrested right after the Emergencies Act came into play. And we can see that she saw a judge today. We have this woman, her name is Mariaki Walsh, posted this morning, February 22nd, said, breaking, Freedom Convoy leader Tamara Lich has been denied bail by an Ottawa judge. Denied bail. All right, and there are reasons that people get denied bail. Look, I'm not a Canadian lawyer, don't pretend to be, but I am a Arizona lawyer, and I'm also licensed in California. And we've had many bail hearings. I've appeared on many of them and argued many of them. And we talk about things like whether a person's a flight risk. Are they going to leave or are they going to come back to court? Do they have a criminal history? Right? Is this somebody who has a proclivity to go out and commit more crimes. We talk about many different things like whether they have support out there in the community, whether their crime was a violent offense. Okay, was this somebody who was waving a gun around or assaulting somebody? Is this a domestic violence situation? Does this person have mental problems? Right? All these different factors, and you put them all together and you weigh the totality of the circumstances. And when we covered this here, when we had our own insurrection and political prosecution, which is still well underway, by the way, we're just still getting warmed up on that one, they were using all of those different factors to keep people in custody. Why? Because they were classifying our January 6th attack insurrection as an insurrection, right? An assault on democracy. And there were judges that were saying, you know, you were like standing inside the Capitol building and you shouldn't have been there. And that's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And so we're just going to hold you indefinitely in solitary confinement while you rot away. So we had in the United States judges who, in my opinion, were crossing over those boundaries of what should be allowable in our justice system. Same thing's going to be happening now in Canada. And so let's see whether we can sort of make heads or tails of this. The next court date for this woman, who just 2 weeks ago would not have been arrested, in fact, was not arrested, is March 2nd. So she'll sit in custody there, continuing to just sort of fester away. We've got Marieke Walsh also says she's banned from communicating with other convoy organizers. And so you can see, right, this is going to be sort of the new Oath Keepers. We have the Oath Keepers or the 3%ers. These are going to be the convoy organizers, right, the conspiracy people. Pat King, Chris Barber, Benjamin Dichter. We've got Daniel Buford, etc. CBC reported that she was, in fact, denied bail. Lich is the Alberta woman behind the GoFundMe campaign. Oh, that's why. She raised a bunch of money and they hate that. She was arrested and charged on Tuesday with counseling to commit mischief. Okay, counseling to commit mischief. Now, again, I am not a Canadian lawyer, but counseling to commit mischief sort of sounds like, you know, one of these offenses that is not the actual is analogous to conspiracy in the United States, right? Which is a very, very sort of broad, very muddled type of charge. And so we're going to take a look at this mischief charge and break that down. Actually look at the law. Before her arrest, Ms. Lich told journalists that she wasn't concerned about being arrested, doesn't think the protest is illegal. It wasn't until they changed the rules, and said that her bank account was frozen, right, until they changed the rules. Judge said not convinced she's going to go home and stay there and stop her counseling, right? Stop being involved in the conspiracy. Stop being involved in sort of the coaxing of other people to get involved. She's going to continue to speak out. And they're calling it counseling. They are criminalizing free speech, essentially, right? She's going to go home and speak out about this. And so here's what the arrest looked like.
Good evening. Yes.
Are you?
I'm good.
Talk to you here for a second.
Yes.
Oh boy. So
You're placed under arrest.
let's ask you back up, sir. Could you guys ask back up, please? Just back up, guys. Thank you.
My coat's wet.
And me. Is wet?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Sean Tyson. I'm not here to arrest you, Sean.
Well, you will be.
It's me.
What's that?
Because I'm right next there.
If you're going to take her, you got to take me.
You have to. This is Danny Bulford. And I'm Sean Tyson. We are just as much as
Sorry, gentlemen, don't hear.
You guys know you're going on social media, right?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so that was the arrest of Miss Lich. She apparently was too effective in helping people organize this protest, and so she gets punished, right? They go after the people on top. Charged with mischief or counseling mischief, and, you know, it's like, you're not, well, let's see. This is what the law says. So everyone commits mischief who willfully destroys or damages property. So I don't know if they have any evidence of that. We'll see. Renders property dangerous, useless, inoperative, or ineffective. I didn't see anything like that. But I did see that the RCMP, the Canadian police, they wrecked those backhoes, those construction pieces of equipment. We saw that. They did render that property inoperative. I mean, they cut all the wires and they put foam in the fuel lines. So I think that you could charge the RCMP with those. But I don't know about Tamara. Obstructs, interferes with the lawful use or enjoyment of property. There you go, right? So the cars were parked there on government property, and that's a big no-no. And so they'll probably cite her under this. Now, we were talking about this. So if you are a supporter of the show on Locals or on YouTube, we did a live stream earlier today where we were a show prep. We do show prep live streams. And there was a show prep conversation about this where we said specifically, this is a very broad type of statute. It covers a lot of different things. In the United States, something like this might be, criminal damage or public nuisance. And there are all sorts of different types of statutes that you would see for different violations, but they're kind of lumping all of this into one big, broad statute. Now, punishment, it says here, everyone who commits mischief in relation to property, can exceed 10 years, right? And so that sounds like it is a big sort of cap of a statute. If they're guilty. Now, this is saying a testamentary instrument, so that looks like it might be for something with wills or trusts. Everyone who commits mischief that causes actual danger to life is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. And look, folks, you might look at that and you might listen to this and say, Rob, that is crazy. Tamara Lich didn't do anything that would cause actual danger to life, right? Like you would say that this is insane. But I am not joking, that we've listened to these people for the last 2 or 3 weeks saying that they were facing psychological warfare. Jim Watson, the Ottawa mayor, said that they were facing psychological warfare, right? It's sort of impeding with vehicles. And there was the story about the woman whose chemotherapy treatment was delayed by a day or something like that because of traffic. Like, this is a life or death thing. They're going after everybody for these allegations, saying that they're almost killing people. And Meltdown Carol Ann Meehan of the Ottawa City Council was like crying and begging the police for help. For them, it's certainly life or death. Here they say that we're talking about property. So now that they say, okay, you're interfering with property, you're interfering with the roads, you're in Canada, this is a big problem. What are they talking about? Well, if it involves religious worship, so we'll leave that one out. Here's where they say a building or structure that is primarily used by an identifiable group, right? So they're going to use this part of the law to say the identifiable group is the Freedom Trucker Convoy. And if you're interfering with any of these buildings that have any sort of administrative, social, or cultural impact, there are problems for that. And there's a special segment here, even for war memorials, right? So you can see they'll apply that. And it's probably going to look something like those guys who were shoveling snow off the war memorial. Probably should charge them with mischief. Nuts. Now, the judge who is behind this is this woman. Her name is Ontario Court Justice Judge. Her name is Julie Bourgeoise, which I don't know if that is from the Communist Manifesto directly. I don't know if she's named after Karl Marx or not, but could very well be. It is Canada, after all. Said on Tuesday morning, Canada now, right? I mean, so sort of seeing her new cultural Marxist dictatorship come into fruition. Says here, said today that Lich poses a substantial likelihood of reoffending and places public safety at risk if she is released. Judge said today, quote, I'm satisfied there is evidence provided by the government that your actions and participation in this offending behavior had the result of causing or contributing to the serious impact on the physical, mental, and financial health and well-being of our community. You are certainly facing a potentially lengthy term of imprisonment. It's like I'm having deja vu, like back to the January 6th bail hearings. Financial health, mental, physical, and financial health and well-being of our community. Throughout the proceeding, Judge Bourgeois was attacking Lich's credibility, saying, I found your testimony to be guarded and your attitude almost obstructive. And so you are disturbing, secretive, and mysterious. Oh, no. All right, so this judge is going to be setting the tone. No bail. And we saw this, right? Jacob Chansley and many other people in the January 6 cases were all held. Many, have, I think, still in custody. But this judge, she didn't always want to be a judge. In fact, she wanted to run for office. She was a Liberal MP candidate back in 2011. Actually ran for office. And guess who supported her when she was running? This guy, Justin Trudeau. Let's listen to how Justin Trudeau speaks about Judge Bourgeois holding indefinitely Canadian citizens.
It's an extraordinary pleasure for me to tell you how much I have great admiration for Julie Bourgeoise. Her vision, her authenticity, her strength is going to be an amazing asset both to the people of Glengarry, Prescott, Russell, but also to everyone in the House of Commons after the next elections when I will have hopefully the honor of sitting beside her in the House. Thank you very much.
Man, that guy. So it seems like, they're probably old pals. Justin Trudeau's like, hey, can you make sure that don't let that lady out? And they didn't let her out. So she's still sitting in custody. Now, here is what the judge actually said. Says former Liberal Party candidate Ontario Judge denied the Convoy organizer, Tamara Lich. She talked about this previously when she was running for office, saying, desperate measures call for desperate times. So this is the type of person we're dealing with.
When the economy is tough, then what you see is somewhat of an elevation of the crime rate, not necessarily major crime. You see desperate people going through desperate times and using desperate measures.
Oh, well, she's talking about people going through desperate times, using desperate measures. Oh, well, is she going to be sympathetic to the truckers then that are going through desperate times that are created by her own government? No, she's not. She's going to hold them indefinitely in custody, as she has done here. Now, she's been a judge for some period of time. You can see this goes all the way back to 2015. Prior to that, sounds like she was the Attorney General. So, Attorney General is probably similar to what they have here in the United States, meaning she's like, a prosecutor, more or less. Does well for herself. Salary looks like last year over $300,000. It's pretty good. Goes up it goes up pretty nicely. So let's see, year after year, 2008, so 3,000 there, 6,000 there. We have another 9,000 there. So probably, next year, maybe $312,000. Yeah. So it's, not bad. Pretty good revenue there for just sitting around and saying, oh no, you don't get out of custody. All right. Anyway, I'm sure she does more than that, but probably not much. Here is somebody who is supportive of her. This is David Anbar, right? Criminal defense lawyer in Ottawa. I'm sure I'm never going to be admitted to practice law in Canada now. That's all right. Says that David Anbar here is writes. Now, this guy is actually representing two people. We talked about him on a prior video. David Anbar is the guy representing the woman who had the phone slapped out of her hands, and also the guy that old elderly gentleman who's like 4'6", who got arrested by Shrek, the Ottawa police officer, for not identifying himself. This guy is representing both of those people, David Anbar. And he is defending the judge on this. He says, look, she was denied bail, but here's what it means. She says, Tamara Lich was denied bail. And we explained why. And he says, many are speaking out against the refusal of the judge to grant bail, going so far as to calling her a political prisoner. Says, I agree the judge got it wrong, but, it's actually a pretty close call. All right. So kind of, when I read that, I was like, all right. Let's see where he's going with this. I didn't like the sound of that. Let's see what he says. Bail, on the other hand, is very different in a trial. It does not result in the binary decision found in trial, and it requires balancing many interests, right? We talked about those. A flight risk, the type of crime they committed, whether or not they have a propensity to recommit, whether they got any mental health issues, support in the community, all those types of things. He says there is a heavy presumption that under ordinary circumstances, a person must be released from custody and the prosecution must show cause and reasons for denying bail. Okay, same here, but there are three reasons that qualify as cause. All right, so let's see how Canada does this thing. One, if the court believes that the accused is likely not to attend court. All right, so we talked about that, flight risk, okay. If the court believes there is a substantial likelihood that they continue to break the law, number 2, okay, maybe. Or if the court believes that detention is necessary to maintain confidence in the administration of justice, and whatever that means. So it's just a big, broad catch-all that doesn't really mean anything. In this case, the judge detained her on second and third grounds, right? Saying that she'll probably come back to court, but she'll probably be out there counseling other people to continue to break the law. And number 3, that they got to keep her just to maintain confidence in the justice system. Now, I don't know what that means. All right. So those things are a little bit, different here in the United States. We have also big, broad catch-alls. I mean, they're not different. I mean, they're similar in operation, but I would say different in style. And so he's saying that it's, basically my point of sharing this with you is it is so broad that the judge can basically come up with whatever reason they want to justify it. And he's saying the judge found a reason to justify it and it's justified. So maybe it is how things work in Canada, but my goodness, I mean, it seems like look, unless she's got a bad criminal history or, is an actual flight risk or something like that, the idea that she might publicly counsel the thing to continue is all right. So he says that the decision was cogent and in line with a reasonable interpretation of the law, but still, in my view, it's not a correct application of the principles in this case. He says the offenses themselves are not serious enough to justify the argument, so point number 3 should go out. He says, bearing in mind that the heavy presumption favors release, substantial likelihood is a high hill for the government to meet. But the judge agrees and says that they got it. Yeah. He talks about this. This is good, right? There are a lot of alternatives. House arrest. You can say, we're not going to keep you in custody. We're not going to let you on your own recognizance, but we can say we're going to keep you under house arrest or put an ankle monitor on or put them on what's called pretrial services where they have somebody that they check in with on a regular basis. To say, yes, I am where I am, right? I'm reporting to my job. I'm reporting to these things. But that allows people to maintain their lives, right? To sort of engage in continuity. That's not what they want. They want punishment. And that's why they're going to get it. They're going to continue, as long as they have the power to do it, Hopefully the defense attorneys up there in Canada are circling the wagons and coming up with some ideas on how to handle that, because it sounds like an overreach to me. Moving on, we have more from another person who is also bending the rules. We saw that Tamara Lich is being held basically indefinitely. We see that Justin Trudeau is gobbling up powers to continue to do what he wants to do. It is not just stopping there with those arrests, though. It's now also continuing on to the financial sector. If we haven't already spent enough time on this, we're going to do it again because Chrystia Freeland is here. And Chrystia Freeland is now saying that she needs this surveillance power, quote, on a permanent basis, right? So it's not going to go away. She says that we need to increase the quality and the quantity of our intelligence and support law enforcement. Here is this person, another despot from Canada.
As of today, all crowdfunding platforms and the payment service providers they use must register with FINTRAC, and they must report large and suspicious transactions to FINTRAC. This will help mitigate the risk that these platforms receive illicit funds, increase the quality and quantity of intelligence received by FINTRAC, and make more information available to support investigations by law enforcement into these illegal blockades. We are making these changes because we know that these platforms are being used to support illegal blockades and illegal activity, which is damaging the Canadian economy.
Wow.
The government will also bring forward legislation to provide these authorities to FINTRAC on a permanent basis.
All right. So you can see increase the quality, increase the quantity of intelligence so that they can continue to support law enforcement, and saying that we need this on a permanent basis. Now, this was a clip, let's see here. This was a clip from her, and I was looking into this woman, right, who is Chrystia Freeland, and looking around on Twitter, and she's got a pretty extensive history. Now, to catch everybody up who hasn't been following the show over the last, I don't know, couple weeks, we've been talking a lot about Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, because there's a clip going around from Klaus Schwab at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, where they're sitting there talking about the World Economic Forum and the young global leaders penetrating the cabinets of global governments. And Schwab is saying, in particular, Justin Trudeau is one of them. And I can tell you for a fact, everybody, that Justin Trudeau in his cabinet, half of those people are our people, is what Klaus Schwab says. And so many people are asking questions. They're even asking in the Canadian Parliament. They're saying, hey, we have questions. We want to identify who those people are. And they shut those questions off. I made a video about that if you missed it. But if you continue to rewind the clock and continue to peel the layers back of this onion, and we ask ourselves, who is Chrystia Freeland and where did this woman come from? Is she somebody who might be a part of this secret cabal of young global leaders at the World Economic Forum installed in Canada? Well, here's a clip. And look where she happens to be sitting. Right in the middle of this panel. And we can see, oh, it's an event for the World Economic Forum. Don't you just love that? Committing to improving the state of the world. Oh, that's real nice of them. What a nice group of people. Let's listen to what she has to say about the current global system.
This is about reality. And I think there can be a tendency, especially among those of us who have been the winners in how the economy has shaken out, to say it's just about perceptions people have and feelings, and actually things are pretty great. Just look at the GDP numbers. I think the starting point has to be exactly where Guy began, which is to acknowledge that global capitalism in Western industrialized countries and Western democracies over the past 40 years has not been delivering for the middle classes in our countries.
Yeah, you guys should be in charge.
And there are variations between countries. Ali is quite right. The hollowing out of the middle class is not as severe in Canada as it is, for example, in the United States. But the trend lines are happening everywhere. You know, they're happening in France with its extensive social safety net. They're happening in Sweden. And we really need to be frank and honest about that. And I say that as a person who really believes in capitalist democracy. As a student, I lived in the actual Soviet Union. So I am pretty aware that central planning and communist dictatorship are not good places to live. But those of us who believe in capitalist democracy, and I very much count myself in that number, we have the first obligation to be pointing out what the problems are. I also agree with Guy that we need to see this as a pretty acute thing. And we need to connect this conversation with another conversation a lot of people are having in a lot of countries about where is this angry, often nativist populism coming from, which seems to be ripping through like wildfire so many Western democracies.
Like the truckers.
My own view is the real root of it is the hollowing out of the middle class. The fact that people are concerned about their own jobs. They're really concerned about what kind of a future their kids are going to have. They're worried about their retirement. And
can you believe that? They are taking all of that from people. So she's saying, you know, these nativist monsters, these MAGA insurrectionists, these people who are Nazis and Confederates, they're sort of sweeping Western democracies. And it's because the middle class is being taken advantage of. Who can go and solve that? Well, you know, a more centralized global economic forum, the one that wants to have this great global reset that brings everybody in and sort of exploits a political opportunity so that we can create a new version of capitalism whereby the stakeholders run things, right? This is sort of the idea behind stakeholder capitalism and the World Economic Forum being this merger of governance and corporations, where the governments sort of, you know, disappear under the idea that this global corporate net can keep control of everything in a way that governments cannot. So she's out there. Now, I think when you join the dark side, you age pretty quickly. You can see this is what she looked like, I think, when she was giving this talk. And then we fast forward to the age of COVID, and sort of this is what happens to your soul as the life force just gets sucked out of you. And here she is now talking about how to exploit a COVID opportunity. Of course, COVID is here, and she thinks it's a great window to exploit an opportunity.
I really believe COVID has created a window of political opportunity and maybe an epiphany.
A political opportunity and maybe an epiphany. You know, there's a lot we can learn from this. Like, just give up all your rights and your liberties and just let us take control of it. Here is the same woman who back during COVID was making, these types of arguments. You remember this? Remember these people?
I thank you. I know you're very busy this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, really great to talk to you, Lisa. And please, everyone, let's flatten the curve together, limit our social interactions. Please let us all wear our masks. If we do it right, we can avoid having to do much more terrible things.
Much more terrible things to you.
And we can let our kids keep going to school.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Lisa.
Yeah, do what we say. Otherwise, we're going to do a lot more terrible things to you. And, if you do what we say, we'll allow your kids to continue to go to school, which is very nice of her. Little dictator. And she's going to continue on. Now, she's saying everybody's going to be punished for this thing. Watch.
The RCMP has given to the financial institutions names of leaders and organizers of the protests and of people whose trucks were part of occupations and blockades.
People whose
trucks. That is the only information, according to the RCMP, that the RCMP has given to financial institutions. I think it's also really important for everyone to be clear, and this speaks to the getting our facts straight point, that these measures applied only as of the 15th of February. That is when financial support of these illegal blockades and occupations began to be sanctioned. And then finally, let me say, for anyone who is concerned that their accounts may have been frozen
Listen to this.
because of their participation in these illegal blockades and occupation, the way to get your account unfrozen is to stop being part of the blockade and occupation.
Just stop being a part of it.
These measures were put in place to disrupt illegal activity in Canada.
All right. So she said that basically anybody who made a donation to any of these groups, right, anybody whose trucks were involved, if you owned them, if you're an insurance provider, they're going after everybody, right? This web is going like a search engine, just going to go and crawl through every single extension, every single tentacle to investigate everybody. Anything that came in after the 15th, gone, is what she says. Now, she's going to say, if you want to get that back, if we've already sort of acted upon you, then we are asking you to, I think, stop participating, and they're going to unfreeze your account. Like, I don't know what the mechanisms are behind any of these things, but we'll certainly see as people start to, feel the consequences of this. She says here that, so this is somebody else here, David Aiken, was saying that the takeaway from somebody's hearing today, Pat King was another person who was also arrested, said law enforcement and police officers are watching our live Facebook feeds too, right? So they are out there, investigating everybody. And I saw a super chat come in from Patricia Nab here, says, Rob, I'm an American that gave a small donation to the truckers through Give, Send, Go. They can't freeze my bank account, can they? And so listen, I'm not a lawyer that gives financial advice on this show. I am a lawyer that gives financial advice in Arizona cases for Arizona criminal charges, and we have a law firm here that handles that. So let me just throw that out there as a disclaimer. So I can't speak other than me speculating about this. And so look, here's how I would think this would go. Okay, you're going to have a number of sort of circuit breakers that happen, but I think before it gets down to the average consumer. So, Canadian is going to, their government is going to have to demand something from a United States government, Canadian government to the U.S. government, I would think, U.S. government back through the U.S. corporation, and there's going to be all sorts of fail-safes, right? Give, Send, Go is not going to want to turn over any records about people's financial transactions over to these entities. Okay. And so I know that a lot of the Give, Send, Go bank accounts the contact details were leaked, right? Emails were leaked, and people's identities are sort of known, and people can connect the dots on those things. But my question would be, is there enough there to sort of to backtrace this all through Give, Send, Go, to go back through your actual debit card or bank account or credit card or whatever it is that you actually use to conduct that transfer of money? Is Give, Send, Go going to sort of deliver all of that transaction data in a way that would allow the financial institutions to sanction you individually? I just don't see that happening, personally. Now, I don't know, what happens if Joe Biden wakes up and says, yeah, we're going to comply with everything. Sure. Yeah, we're just going to executive order, and we're going to open all these things up. And now the United States is playing this game, and we've got the FBI also doing the same thing. I mean, look, folks, it's a scary thing to think about, right? But this is the reality of the world that we're living in. I think that there are more protections here in the United States than what we have over there in Canada. But I'm sure that there are a lot of Canadians who were sitting there as well saying that would never happen here. And here we are. People's assets, bank accounts being frozen. And so, Patricia, I personally wouldn't be worried about that. I think that they've got bigger fish to fry sort of on their side of the country, but you don't know. You don't know how things could go, because I wouldn't be, a couple weeks ago, I didn't think we'd even be having this conversation about what's happening in Canada. And here we are. Eddie Oliver's here, says, Rob, I think I'm going to do the trucker convoy. Please get my bail money ready. Also, as usual, Arizona is not a real state like Texas, from Eddie Oliver. All right. And so we're not done with the show yet, but I wanted to get a couple of those super chats in. And we also have more, because speaking of stealing property, which is what the Canadian government is doing, Ottawa, the city council, and their mayor also want to do that. Here is what Jim Watson has to say. Jim Watson is the Ottawa mayor who said that they were suffering psychological warfare at the behest of the Freedom Trucker convoys. And here is what he says. All those trucks that we seize, those are our trucks now, because we have emergency power to take them.
What do you make of how far the police have managed to get today?
Well, they've done a remarkable job both last night and today. As you pointed out, they've got Wellington Street cleaned up. Most of the trucks have been towed away. And I now just got word that the Sir Johnny Macdonald Parkway, most of the trucks are removed from that section in the west end of the city as well. So they've made a lot of progress. They've been very measured in the response. It's a really tough assignment for police officers.
All right, get on with it.
But they have been calm and cool.
Did you hear him? He said that the truckers have been spitting on police officers. Okay.
Cool and collective. And we owe a debt of gratitude to all those municipal forces that have come in from across Canada, disrupted our city. You've heard our small business community. And this is costing a small fortune for the taxpayers of Ottawa. And that's one of the reasons why, under the Emergency Act, I've asked our solicitor and our city manager, how can we keep the tow trucks and the campers and the vans and everything else that we've confiscated and sell those
keep them and sell them.
Pieces of equipment to help recoup some of the costs that our taxpayers are absorbing. So that's one of the provisions of the Emergency Act. And we have been a beneficiary of the Emergency Act. As they debated on the Hill, I asked the members of Parliament to consider. It's helped us a lot on things like confiscating vehicles, not having to swear in peace officers to the RCMP, and so many other things that have been very helpful over the course of this period, including you can't be under 18 and be in this rally. It's just unbelievable. We get copycats, and people will think, hey, I'm going down to Parliament Hill and parking there for 3 or 4 days and having a big roast and everything else under the sun. We have to prevent that. We need a short-term plan to blockade Wellington, a longer-term plan on how we protect our residents much better than we have in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, you didn't do a good job of it. You know, you could have just sat down and talked with some people. You could have had a conversation about it. You could have done what basically every other country in the world is doing, what many other provinces, even in your own country, are doing, which is rolling back many of these insane COVID mandate policies that have been, largely ineffective, as we've seen. And so he's now saying your property is our property. Those trucks are our trucks, and any of the equipment that we seized, well, we needed to take that to recoup all the funding that we spent going after the truckers. So Mayor Watson is just another one of these politicians who's a little bit off the rockers, but I don't think that, well, they're on the same tier, I think, as this person. Here is another lunatic, Canadian MP, who says that Honk Honk is an acronym for Heil Adolf. Here's what she says.
How many guns need to be seized? How much vitriol do we have to see of Honk Honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler?
What?
Do we need to see by these protesters on social media?
Oh, this poor woman. She just, I think she short-circuited there. Honk Honk is an acronym.
How many guns?
For Heil Adolf? All right. Okay, those are those people. Now, there are still farmers and truckers making their way all around Canada. This was posted today, February 22nd. Now, there's a lot of these videos poking around on YouTube. It's hard to determine, when they were time-coded or whatever, but we're seeing that this post says farmers are slow rolling into Quebec, and they have their farmer tractors. Here's what it looks like.
C'est vraiment hot. C'est où, lui? Il sera pas pris?
So that's interesting, right? The reason why I wanted to show that's interesting, right? Is that still happening? Are people still driving their tractors around in Canada, even though they're under emergency order? Even though the RCMP is going after people's bank accounts and seizing everything? If that's the case, right, that's some strong resolve and some real kind of, steel cojones, I'd say. Around the world, other people are expressing their opinion on what this little maniac Justin Trudeau is doing. In Romania, we have this guy who's a global hero, in my opinion. His name is Chrystia Freeland. Beats the hell out of Justin Trudeau, verbally, of course, calling him a tyrant. He's a dictator. And listen to this guy, man. He is on one. Let's watch.
And with the Prime Minister of Canada, the way he's behaving right now, he's exactly like a tyrant, like a dictator.
Yes.
He's like Ceausescu in Romania.
I know.
If even you doubt, if you raise doubts about the vaccines, you're outcasted.
Yep.
What's the difference between what he does and what happened under the Inquisition?
I don't know.
See, on one side they say, well, we should not believe in God, but on the other side they say, believe in science. We don't have to. Science is not about belief. Science is about measurements, conclusions, hypotheses, and arguments.
Yes, that's true.
We got to a point right now where even if you say something, if you raise any doubts, you're already considered, as
an insurrectionist.
Whatever, They label you in very different ways.
An insurrectionist.
This is not okay. I have to tell you, that when I saw the protests in Canada, the way the truckers over there reacted,
COVID.
I got in touch with some of them. Others contacted me. I congratulated them, and I want to use this opportunity to thank them. And I hope this movement for freedom and for rights is spreading all around the world.
Yes,
because at the end of the day, we have to make sure that all these elected officials, they understand that they were elected in those offices to work for the people, not to behave like masters of slaves. Thank you.
Yes, baby. Get it. Don't behave like slaves. Stop living under masters. They were elected to work for the people. So hats off to that Romanian politician. He's absolutely right. The movement is spreading all over the place, and it's percolating and materializing here in the United States. I saw this from PBM News. This video from the Freedom Convoy just came in here. OANN actually posted this source, and you can see he's out there, right? Looks like in D.C. He's got a message for what is coming.
This message is for the President of the United States of America. My name is Kyle Sefcik of the Freedom Convoy USA 2022, and our routes meet here in D.C. on March 1st in time for your State of the Union address.
Oh,
we are very organized, and our routes are public. I even pulled a permit for the National Mall to be respectful.
Well, that's nice.
I just want to be as transparent as possible from the start so there's no confusion. We are coming peacefully, and we're going to do this lawfully and constitutionally. I want the rest of the world to know our plans so that there's no twisting and lying about who and what we are. I'm coming to you as a father, a small business owner who's unaffiliated to any parties. We just want government overreach to end. On behalf of Freedom Convoy USA 2022, we are asking you to end the state of emergency, end the mandates once and for all. Sir, the world is watching us because they know that if what's happening in Canada happens to us here in the land of the free, then freedom as we know it is gone. So we are leaving the choice to you. The decision is in your hands. This whole convoy, this whole assembly on the National Mall, it doesn't even have to happen if you just end things now and we can get on with our lives. To you other convoys that plan on meeting us here, we look forward to seeing you and joining with you. We're going to do this right. We're going to do this honorably. Mr. President, we have no other motives in this mission. You see, the government, our elected officials of both parties have failed us tremendously these last 2 years, and now it's time for us, we, the people, to fix this, to end this. We're ready to get back to our lives, the ones promised and guaranteed in the United States Constitution, Bill of Rights, and the contract that you signed and swore an oath to under the one true God. This is simple. End this.
All right. Freedom Convoy USA 2022. Yeah, you know, it's a pretty powerful statement. And I'm watching the chat go by. Everybody's saying, be careful, boys. A lot of that comments, right? A lot of that concern out there because we're seeing what's happening in Canada. We're seeing what real tyranny looks like. And we know that our government is capable of it too. The Freedom Convoy sounds like they moving forward anyways. And it's also materializing as we speak. We heard from him saying that they're going to be there right around March 1. And as we've talked about on this channel, the strategy has always been that there's sort of a big main river that goes across the country, and it's going to be filled and populated by all sorts of different tributaries, right? Truckers kind of coming across from different parts, north and south of, the geographic region to sort of meet that center snake that goes right across the USA. And it's starting, we're seeing some activity here in wherever this is. Let's watch here. This is Montana, Hamlin, Montana. We see KTVQ News posted this. It seems like we've got a little bit of a convoy forming right behind this one. You can see here, we've got several trucks. I'm seeing some American flags. Looks like a Don't Tread on Me flag back there. Let's listen to Hannah as she tells us what is going on.
Parking lot in Hamilton, Montana. There are about 50 vehicles decorated with American, Canadian, and political flags, as well as signs like this one saying we love truckers and supporting those truckers as they rally against mandates here in Montana.
And the point of all of this is just freedom of choice. We don't care if people get the vaccine or don't get the vaccine. That's a personal decision.
On Sunday, a crowded parking lot filled with decorated pickups and big rigs protesting COVID mandates.
We're all just hardworking Americans and Canadians, and we just
We just want to get rid of the mandates.
This rally is a reaction to vaccine requirements for truckers who work across the northern border. Supporters expressed mixed emotions and explained why they came out to participate.
I don't like people sitting there telling me what to do, how to do it.
Elated, happy, you know, it's a good feeling.
Hamilton trucker Enrique Cruz says he came out to support what he calls a brotherhood.
You know, so if we can come together for this, we can come together for a lot more.
They weren't alone. Along the route to Missoula, supporters on the side of the road waved and cheered. In Hamilton, Hannah Hislop, MTN News.
All right, so you can see, right, little activity there, and, you know, who knows if this is actually going to, you know, materialize into something or not, but we have another video here. This one was posted today over from Rapture Watcher. It says on February 22nd, we see some activity here in Montana, the Montana Convoy. And, you know, again, it's hard to sort of vet when these you know, what's happening here, or if this is an older video. But we'll see. Don't see a whole lot of American flags in this video. Like, there's one. So, right, a lot of activity. Now, part of this is part of the sort of the strategy, right? It's kind of the cat and mouse game that we were talking about. You know, they dismantle one city. Truckers are mobile. They just go to a different city, right? There's a blockade over on the Ambassador Bridge. Well, that's okay. You just go to a different location. They blockade Coots. Okay, go to somewhere else. And so we'll see where it ends up. We do know there's a lot of activity over at the Capitol building. We can see here that the Capitol is getting ready for this. I've got a statement from the Capitol Police, and we're going to see them putting up fences already. And we're going to get to your questions here as soon as we just see kind of what they're doing to prepare for the State of the Union coming up very soon.
While in our nation's capital, police are preparing for a convoy in the United States. Capitol Police have been blocking specific roads, and they'll reportedly put up a fence around the Capitol building in preparation of the arrival of that convoy, which is set to arrive on March 1st, the day President Biden gives his State of the Union address.
All right, so that is what's happening there. You can see, right, some activity going on, a lot of dump trucks moving stuff around. Police are sort of on high alert. This is what the Capitol Hill Police reported. They say that they're planning for extra security. They posted this on Friday, February 18th. They said law enforcement agencies across the national capital region are aware of plans for a series of truck convoys arriving in D.C. around the time of the State of the Union. As with any demonstration, U.S. Capitol Police will facilitate lawful First Amendment activity. Capitol Police closely coordinating with local and federal agencies, including D.C.'s Metro Police, Park Police, Secret Service, and other agencies, including the D.C. National Guard. Here's additional information about inquiries received. Says Secret Service has been closely working together on the State of the Union. The temporary inner perimeter fence is part of those ongoing discussion and remains an option, but nothing has been made here. No decision has been made, but if you look here, we do see a lot of fencing going up. This is at the Capitol building, of course. We see these sort of low-grade barricades here, and then we've got some really, really sort of the big, tall, major walls up here, right? Those you can see just for scale. Take a look at this for scale. Small barricades, and then see those at the top, like these are the small guardrails, and you can see there's a small guardrail up there, but it's about, I don't know, a fourth of the size. So they are arming up, gearing up. And we'll see what they do if the truckers actually show up. What do you say about it? Let's take a look at the questions over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have some super chats that came in, and I need to pull up the questions, of course. And so let's get there in a quick minute. All right. So while those questions are pulling up and refreshing, we had a couple super chats come in. Tails is here, says, we all know that Crime Minister Trudeau loves blackface, but did you know that Chrystia Freeland's ironic last name's granddad was a Nazi? Says no joke on that. So I did not know that. I saw some interesting memes, actually. Somebody posted that in our community chat on Telegram, and I saw sort of the, what is it called? The tree, right? A family tree kind of a situation going on in Canada. And there was an interesting connection with her. Yeah, no doubt. Another one came in from CC, says, they aren't acting like Nazis. The National Socialists were fascists. This is communism. Please understand the difference. They're the exact opposite. So, you know, I think that you can say they have some similarities, right? You know, sort of totalitarian style governments in practice, really no matter what the economic model is. Right? They still have indicia of tyranny, whether it's communism or fascism. The economic model's different. One is communal, the other is sort of corporatist. But they are close enough that I think you can say that they're problematic. But you're right, they are different things, no doubt about that. Here's another one from Z. Michael Gelke, says, incorrect. The fascist and communist are both forms of collective authoritarianism, the same idea, slightly repackaged. So I think that was Michael responding to CC, right? And I think that is a good framing of that, right? It's a societal governmental structure. The economics behind the structures are different, but you still need to have very, top-heavy centralized government control that basically runs everything and manages the economic resources. In a fascist state, it's this merging between the government and the corporatist sort of layer, where the government, sort of is running how the corporations and the businesses are running society. Whereas in communism, right, it's a lot more communal. The people own the means of production, and both systems are garbage. So we can just leave it at that. Anne Marie Bennett is here with no question, but a nice donation. Thank you. And Patricia Nab says, Rob, I'm an American that gave a small donation. They can't freeze my bank account, can they? And so, look, I answered that earlier. I can't give you a specific legal answer on that. I, wouldn't be worried about it if I had done something like that and it was a small donation. But, look, we're living in a weird time where we now have a new entity with the Department of Justice and the FBI that is focused on domestic terrorists, okay? It's not good, especially if you have a show every day that you do and you make fun of the FBI. We'll just have to deal with it. We'll see what happens. Eddie Oliver says he's doing the trucker convoy, also says, let them freeze my bank account. There's nothing in there. And he's laughing. So the joke's on them. Yeah, you can take Eddie Oliver's entire bank account. There's nothing in there. Have fun with it. KZ Gypsy Muse is here, says it's readily out there now that Freeland's grandfather was in Adolf's army. She's been groomed. Well, she's a perfect fit for the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, who's a German engineer. Steph D says it was rough watching Viva, so emotional last night. So I did not catch that, and I've seen several people talk about that, so I'm going to have to go see how that show was. My heart really pours out to a lot of the people, everybody in Canada who's involved in this. On our live stream that we did earlier, we were talking about another YouTuber, Mr. Sunshine Baby, and I made a video where I took a clip from him and I said that he got a call from the government saying, take the videos off of your YouTube channel. I talked about that in the prior video that I released last night. I got up this morning. We were talking about this with locals and with our YouTube supporters on our live chat. And I went to check out Mr. Sunshine's Baby's channel, and he deleted all of his videos. Gone. His entire channel. He's got like 220-something thousand subscribers on there. And it just broke my heart. It's sort of something that you see like right on the face. He was out there every day. He was speaking truth to power. He was doing the right thing. He got a call from the tyrants where he lives, scared out of his mind, rightfully so, because what do they tell him? You're going to get arrested? And so he says, what should I do? This channel that I poured my, my time, my blood, sweat, and tears into, I've got to delete everything. And it's just, it's just heartbreaking to see. And, I don't know what to say other than You're welcome here in the United States. I know that's a very difficult, probably virtually impossible thing for most people, but I mean, I don't know what else to do, right? Our government, if your government becomes tyrannical, I think you really at some point have to be asking yourself about leaving the tyrannical government. And, I think about that here as well. It's a scary conversation to have, but we're watching it happen in real time. So I don't know what the alternative is. All right, let's see what we've got over from our friends on Locals. There is a thread here. TOS Forever is saying, good evening, Rob. Good evening, TOS Forever. Another one, Monster One says, what was that woman? Kels Bell says he can't read this one, so I'm not going to read that one. Vienticus is here, says, I guess the public record now shows who all is working for the World Economic Forum. We can certainly see that. Kareem is here, says, Canada is not like Nazi Germany because unlike them, we don't have a major army to harm or invade other countries with. Pretty much, though, that's the only difference at this point. Facts Matter is here, says, I wonder how long the passive Canadian citizens are going to continue eating the sandwich that Trudeau is shoving down their gullets. Now they want to confiscate the trucks that they owned. I'm also wondering when your general strike will start to shut down Canadian commerce, from former LEO. Three Girly says, I think the hardest one to hear was about the one trucker. He was on Tucker last night. When he said he took his beating, quote, like a man, with his thick Romanian accent, it was saddening and angering at the same time. He left Romania and came to Canada for freedom, and then he took a beating from the police like a man, right? It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible, horrible thing that's happening here. And this is, this is in Canada. Okay, this is the same place that every time, we have a Republican who's about to win, we have a lot of people screeching, saying, oh, it's about to become a dictatorship here. We're all going to go to Canada. And now, it is like literally the same liberties that they had 2 weeks ago are no longer in place. People are getting beaten up in the streets. People are having cops come to their businesses and threaten to break their windows in. Women are having their phones knocked out of their hands for walking down the street to get a cup of coffee. Facts Matter says, how are they already invoking, quote, new crimes under the Emergencies Act when it's not passed the Senate yet? How do you enforce something not approved by both chambers? That should be unconstitutional and a charter violation in and of itself. And I don't know the specifics on that, Facts Matter. I don't know, if they need both chambers or how the governments work there. But yeah, it's a good question. There are some things like here in the United States, we don't need both houses to do, right? Like we only need advice and consent of the Senate for certain things. You don't need both chambers. So maybe it's something like that. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob says, the unaccountable RCMP will be a model for what the Dems want the Capitol Police to be. Fellow Americans, be very scared of more federal policing. Yep, and we've been screaming about that here. We talked about this, Sergeant Bob, when the Capitol Hill Police, remember, you were here when they said that they were opening offices. I think it was in San Francisco or someplace in California and another place on the other side of the coasts, just to make sure that they can keep tabs on everybody. Sergeant Bob also says, obvious that Canada has its own swamp. They need a Trump to drain it. The trouble is, I've not seen a candidate with enough following to take it on. Too many socialist-oriented voters in the East and the metro areas to overcome. Canada may well have bigger problems in the USA due to their socialist structure. And P.S., he says, if I were an Ottawa police officer, I think I would have called in saying, I've got COVID, from Sergeant Bob. Well, it didn't seem like too many of them got COVID. John Delar says, you can say what you want and we can complain about the tyranny, but nothing is going to happen to the liberals. For 6 years, we have watched as conservatives got their butts kicked. Even when Trump was president, the Republicans had control of the House and the Senate. Liberals still controlled the narrative. They know how they have power and they know how to use it. They have control of the tech and the school systems, and it's going to get worse. Canada, writes John Delar, is a sign of what is to come in the United States. The liberals are wielding power. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. Kills me. Judges are supposed to protect us, but they are in on it. John Delar says, man, we are toast. I don't think we're there yet there, John. I understand the sentiment, and it's not looking like it's on a good trajectory for sure. But we have a little bit, I think a little bit of fight left in us. We've got Three Girlies says, Viva Fry actually highly recommends David Anbar. Anbar was in one of the videos that I posted on a panel with others talking about the legal side of the Emergencies Act. He's picking up cases for anyone that's arrested, also advising people who had their bank accounts frozen to contact an attorney. Do you think that he could have said that because he knows he's going to be in front of a judge at some point? Would you smack down a judge's decision knowing you would stand in front of a judge later on? I also thought about that, right? So Three Girlies, right? Very astute observation there. Something that I intended to talk about, but I forgot, and you had flagged my memory, right? He's also practicing in that jurisdiction. Okay, it's easy for me to come out here and sort of lob, to throw elbows on this show. I don't have to show up in court over there and actually, see that judge. And so for him to write an article saying, what a moron, wouldn't go over well. So very reasonable. Calm down, everybody. I have court in front of her in like 10 minutes, so just take it easy, right? And so I think that there may be something to that, especially if he's somebody with a big public profile. He's sort of balancing a lot of those concerns. Very astute observation. Vientica says, FYI, there's another clip of Schwab saying he was circulating even before the other one. It's outside with better audio, and in it, Schwab, again, brags about all the places the World Economic Forum has people in. I'll have to look for that one. Vienticus, thank you. Jeremy's here says, now that politicians have thrown away medical privacy, if the Canadian people manage to get their country back to normal, they should require all candidates to go through a mental test to ensure they don't become tyrannical. If current politicians are so unstable that they suffered mental harm from peaceful citizens, they are not mentally stable enough to serve in the government. It's a good point, Jeremy. There was another thought sort of floating around out there that wouldn't it be interesting to see what all of their prescriptions say? They have access to all of our private records, and they have spying programs where they just turn on your iPhone or whatever and get access to literally everything. Wouldn't it be nice to know what our elected official, what kind of prescriptions they were on? Like, how many of them are on like high quantities of, anxiety pills or like depression pills or antipsychotics? Might be interesting to know. Just a thought. Miss Lucky says, is Freeland the sister of Jake from Oxford? Well, Jake, Jake is, I think, even more incompetent. Three Girlie says, this Freeland woman is a true believer. I think she was behind this whole thing. Justin is the face of it, but she's the brain behind it. You could almost see her mouthing the speech that Trudeau was given, sort of like it was her words to begin with. Her head nods and shakes, and he gets to the pointed parts of the speech. This woman is not a capitalist. She's a socialist. She's a communist. She learned it from the best. She is sickening. I agree with that, right? She was a real pleasure to listen to today. We have a couple others that came in. We have several on YouTube that came in. Let's see here. Steph D says, yeah, it was rough watching Viva. Ricky Bishop says, hey, Rob, how do you stay so composed when watching these videos of the tyranny going on in Canada and the world? It really gets me going to watch. Do I seem composed on this show? Well, that's nice that you think that. I mean, most of the time I'm outraged, and that's what leads into my rants. Or sometimes I don't even know what I'm saying. It just comes out. That's how angry I am. Like, I'm not reading a script here. I watch a clip, oftentimes for the first time with you, bite my tongue, and then go on a tirade. That's how this show works. So that's it. That's from Ricky Bishop. We've got Better 30-Year-Old Gamer says the protesters will have their pets euthanized by the Ottawa police after 8 days if no arrangements are made. If anyone can help, please. If they start killing animals, it wouldn't put it past them. They are now a dictatorship. Tessa Michelle says false accusation is not a sin in the religion of the left. Ooh, that's a spicy comment there. False accusation is not a sin. It's not. It's part of the operating manual. It's in, Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Call them and blame them for doing what you're doing. C. Goody says, Susan has been shadow banned apparently right now, so I can only get, has me shadow banned, so I can only get 1 to 2 word messages in the normal chat. But here's a few shekels anyway to say hi. That's from C. Goody. Well, thank you for the shekels, C. Goody. I appreciate that. And I don't have anything going on with the chat. I see a lot of other people. Well, I'm not sure what that's about. Rust US Android says, I've always heard Democrats think fences are useless. Unless they're protected, they're legitimately elected candidates, then they like them. Another one from JM says, how can we donate towards Tamara's defense? So, I don't know who is representing her. It is not that guy, though. It's a good question. I'm sure she has one. I don't have good advice on how to donate towards her defense, especially in light of what's happening there. I don't know if they're going to say that is she allowed to have a legal defense fund if she's a terrorist and they're freezing everybody's financial records? I don't know. Will McEwen says, Canadians, remove all your money from the bank. This will have an enormous impact on the government. You won't have to line the streets and worry about being a political prisoner. I mean, I think there are going to be a lot of consequences for this. And, we'll see how far the Canadian government goes. But I think, is there further they can go? I think they've basically taken all the tools that they can possibly use, and they're using them. We have Z Keys says, help me understand the USA convoy. It's on each individual state's COVID policy, and can they just make them domestic terrorists? Yeah, I mean, yes, they can. I think they're already doing that. I mean, I think they've already kind of done that. And it's not actually a joke, okay? We've talked about this here on this channel. We've looked at the language. I don't have it at hand here, but they said specifically, if you criticize your government, essentially, you are now in one of these buckets of people that are dangerous, and you fall within the purview of domestic terrors. So, I mean, they're already laying the foundation for this, right? The foundation has already been laid here for basically ever since January 6th took place. So I think the Freedom Convoy, they want the national declaration. Remember, Joe Biden, we're still in a state of emergency here. Trump entered the state of emergency back when he was in office. Joe Biden extended it indefinitely. And so we'll continue to see that. And that's where we get, the federal airplane mask mandates. And there's additional provisions that are a consequence of the emergency. And so that's what they're saying needs to go. From Z Keys, we had Phelan P. Kell says, most don't understand the Emergencies Act takes effect as soon as it's invoked. Parliament has 7 sitting days to decide if it's allowed. And so I guess they did that. I think some people were thinking that it was going to, also go to the second chamber, but looks like they just needed the one. Shirley Tram says, why would so many people be herded into this country? Why would so many people be herded into this country? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's hurting anybody, but are you talking about the southern border? Because there's been a lot of people coming across there for sure. Good question, though. Mr. Bushy-Do says authoritarian's going to jackboot. Yeah, authoritarian's going to authority. We've got despot's going to despot. We've got C. Goody says, Susan has a thing for me because I'm not so family friendly in other chats. It happens every so often. Nothing you did. It's always Susan. Well, that's good to know, C. Goody. So C. Goody's out there, throwing blows, which I can really appreciate and respect. And I'm glad that you're here. Over on Locals, Thunder7 says, what's even more depressing is that no world leaders have spoken out against the fascist Canadian government, putting their jackboots on Canadian necks who only want freedom. No one except a Romanian politician and Iran. Oh yeah, Iran. We had Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Remember him? He was out there on Twitter saying that what he saw happening in Canada was horrible. Terrible thing. He used to lead Iran. Like we were going to, go to war with him for what he was allegedly doing. We have here, Miss Lucky says, the Third Reich seized a lot of private property. Who are the real Third Reichs out there? It's Jake from Oxford says, look, listen, the way you are stringing the videos together is creating the appearance that there's a lot of overreach from the Canadian Gestapo. Jake says, that's a little unfair, Rob. Maybe you should try looking for videos of Trudeau giving positive speeches. Okay, Jake. Yeah, thanks for that recommendation. I guess I'll have to think about that. He is smarter than me. He went to Oxford. Jelly of the Month is here. Says, Rob, look into the hacker that brought down the Give, Send, Go site. He's a maniac and completely unhinged and used to work for the Canadian government. I did see that guy. And yeah, I agree with you. He is insane and unhinged. C. Reed is here. Says, hey, Rob, a bunch of the gang and I are wondering if you're pure blood or whether you injected. So the question is yes or no. I understand if you do not want to answer, but sorry, that's fine. You can ask. I've been asked about this and I've answered that I'm not going to answer it. And the reason why I've had a conversation with many doctors, and a doctor who I really admire said, listen, if you have a conversation with people and you lead people to do what you do, then you're sort of encouraging them to not make their own choice. And so I don't want people to either way to take my personal decision as justification for doing it or not, right? And that's just what I've said. Now, that being said, many of you have heard a lot of my commentary on this show about that particular issue. And so you're free to come to your own conclusions on that. But I just don't want to be seen as somebody who is encouraging people one way or the other, right? I really truthfully think it's a personal decision, and I think that people should talk to their doctors about it and make a decision on their own basis, as I've done, as my family has done, as I've encouraged everybody else to do. I think that's the right approach, and I really sort of want to hold that line because I think that's the right approach that our society should take, that our government should take, right? These are decisions. I'm not comfortable with sort of the lines being dragged open where we're sort of talking about these things like it's just like, did you see that movie type of thing? Did you see that movie? Did you get the jab? You know, and all of that stuff. So that's the reason for it. Now, I understand people's curiosity, but, you know, you can put two and two together with my opinions here. Miss Lucky says, Sergeant Bob, we all know what the State of the Union is. Sleepy Joe should go have a nap. And that's from Miss Lucky. Let's see. Let's do a refresh over here. And let's see what we've got. A couple other comments here. Murphy says, good answer on the vaccine. We have another one from Robute says, you can punish the Canadian government without putting yourself at risk by withdrawing money from the banks. Miss Lucky and Sergeant Bob says, I trace history back. I'm a direct descendant of Lieutenant Joseph Hale, brother of Nathan Hale in the Revolution. And I am understanding my family better. That's a good one from Sergeant Bob. Robute says, it seems like a coincidence that the Canadian government is seizing assets with several people on the World Economic Forum. Says it seems like they're likely trying to cause the Great Reset. I believe the assets will be used because of the sovereign debt of Canada. Vienticus also says, when the politicians wall themselves off from the people, you might live in tyranny. In Trudeau's case, somebody expects him to be you got the Viagra deal. Geegum is here. Geegum Geegum says, sadly, I have relatives in Canada who think I'm crazy, that think that what they did to the truckers was good. They think that all this is necessary to keep them safe from the riffraff. Well, look, what happens when that same power is used against a party that you belong to? Okay, it's the truckers now, but it's not always going to be the truckers. And that's where these problems arise. Three Girly says they need both chambers to ratify the act. If it is ratified, will be valid for 30 days. If it passed the House last night, Viva's watching the Senate tonight for the vote. But how easy would it be to continue the act once it passed? I think that it is the biggest issue, that this emergency is supposedly temporary and will become permanent. So, okay, so there we go. So Viva, make sure you're going over to his channel to watch that. Another one from Robute says, remember, guys, the leftist socialists that support doxing and beating the truckers are the same people that work for the Gestapo and round up the Jews during the World War II and Jim Crow segregation. A couple others here. 503 Unlimited says, unfortunately, there is video of police laughing about and abusing the protesters. Canada is lost. Keep your powder dry. Long live Viva Fry. Long live liberty. That is from 503 Unlimited. We have another one. This is Ottawa Gestapo on Twitter. I don't know if it's a real account, but we should have a look. Let's see what this one looks like from Robute. Oh, the Ottawa Gestapo. Yeah, this looks good. Oh, it's Justin Trudeau in the Third Reich gear. Says, okay, so it's a parody account. Looks like it's a fun one. Robute also says that Freeland is a collaborator. She's enacting the 1933 version of the Reichstag Fire Act. Miss Lucky is here, says we all know what the State of the Union is, and Sleepy Joe should just go have a nap. I think I missed some of the first ones, because I thought somebody shared a cat video that we were talking about on our live stream earlier. And while that's loading up, let's make sure that we've got... Oh, no, I think that one went away. All right. And so let's take a look over here on YouTube. Make sure we've got all the rest of these super chats. Thank you, everybody. Kareem says, Ontario is set to drop the vaccine passport March 1, Quebec March 14th. Let's hope they keep their promise. I think the Senate will vote on Thursday. Well, so Three Girly says that Viva might be talking about that tonight. So go check out Viva's channel. I know he's been doing a lot of streaming, and I'm going to go see how he's doing as well. EDM Doc says, for putting up with my manic ranch and twisted humor from EDM Doc. Well, thank you, EDM Doc. EDM, that's what I listen to, right? I think that's what I listen to. Kay says, Canadian socialism was all the rage back when it was just a boot getting free stuff, like healthcare. Well, they're going to get a lot more free stuff. All those truckers, trucks, and, those are now theirs. So I really don't know what, where this thing ends up. But if the United States is any bit of a template, they're going to be living with, Canada's going to be living with this for a very long time. If the United States is any indicator, and I'm sure that it is. C. Goody also says, sorry, Susan and spammers have a thing for me. Here's another $5 for the trouble, and shout out to whatever mod is hammering them. Oh my goodness, yeah. So we had some serious mod support here today, so shout out to the mods. Thank you, everybody who's been there supporting us. All right, and let's do one final shout out on YouTube. We've got Greg Marat says, hey, Rob, what's the solution for WEF? Similar to the ineffective UN, if we get rid of it, there's going to be a new WEF popping up the next day with a different name and with even more stealth. It's a good question. I mean, I had some slides on this. We were taking a look at sort of the economic power of the World Economic Forum and really how much capability they have. And if you sort of equated their influence to a nation state's GDP, I was speculating that they might have more impact in terms of economic throughput than maybe even the United States, right? We don't know. So how do you combat an entity like that? Honestly, it's going to be the same answer that I give. I think largely it's building a parallel system. It's ejecting from many of these old systems. I think that what we're going to see are opt-in systems that are a lot more tyrannical by design. Okay, they're not exactly tyranny because people are opting in, but they have elements of tyranny, right? You give up certain liberties in order to engage in that system. If you want universal basic income, whenever that comes down the pike, you got to comply, right? You got to go get a digital ID. You got to make sure that you're doing X, Y, and Z, get your shots, and make sure that you're compliant. But people will opt in because they're going to say, oh, $1,000 a month. Yeah, I could really use that. Yeah, it's just an ID, no problem. And so we're going to see this sort of slow roll of people opting into this, into this new regime. When that is happening, I think what we're going to see is a bifurcation. People are going to go the other way. We're going to see the future divided into two types of worlds: centralized authoritarianism that is sort of managed by AI and central governments, and you're going to see decentralization where you see people governing themselves, and it's agreements based on consensus. A lot of this will be governed, I think, in Web3 on the back of crypto and some digital interfaces that are more robust than what the government provides. I think you're going to continue to see institutions fail, and as these institutions fail, they're going to gobble up more power and claw for it. And so I think the thing that we do is we keep talking about it. We keep exposing them. We keep identifying them, putting their faces out here on the camera, show what they're doing, because it's that big, beautiful spotlight, baby. And it's accountability and transparency. And if enough people see what they're doing, I think that's what really matters. So we'll continue to do our job. Thanks for being here, Greg. Max Webster says, Rob, as much as I would love to get back at the Canadian government, if everyone took all their money out of the banks, it would have a devastating impact on the economy. The government would be forced to print a lot of money to replace the cash. Inflation would go through the roof, converting all funds to Bitcoin and the like. Not sure. It's from Max Webster. I'm not sure either, right? I'm not sure what that would do. I think a lot of people might be hurt, as a result of that. But if the government's going to come and take your money and seize your financial assets, right? Why wouldn't you pull them out and put them in Bitcoin? I don't know. The doctor's here says your approach is the right approach on the jab. It's a personal decision. Yeah, and so you just, I think just, I don't want to normalize that and I'm not mad about the question or anything. Like, it's a very valid question. I'd be curious too if I were you, if you're sitting there. I wonder what he did with that thing. Huh? Yeah, that's a good question. But I just think, we got to hold the line on some of this stuff. Like, it's not the new normal. We're going to make sure that we don't allow it to become the new normal. And so that, my friends, is it for the questions for the day. A lot of great questions over from our friends at Locals. We had some additional questions and great support on YouTube. Thank you very much. I want to give some shout outs to the supporter spotlight. Now, remember, this is something that's brand new, and so I'm still playing around with this. But if you really want to support the show and you want a spot on this slide, whether you want to put a company logo or a link to a social profile, or you want to support a charity, or you just want to throw your name up there like Dr. EMB has done, like Chris Romero has done, we are going to do a supporter spotlight slide every show. And so Wolfgang Deo says, hey, go over here to my Twitch TV and go follow me over there. And so you can support, of course, and get a spot on this slide if you are a Spotlight supporter member on YouTube. If you are, send me a message on Twitter, Telegram, or email. If you are somebody on Locals who is supporting at that same tier, that same threshold, let me know. We'll do it there. Also, shout outs to the YouTube shout out members, Mr. J-Bug, Blue Bunnies here, Ricky Bishop, also Henry Dixon, who helps mod the channel up, Kareem165, and Timber Traveler just signed up on the shout out level. And we also want to welcome some new members at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got Words Mean Things, which is true, also signed up. We've got Char Jan, who signed up. Bossy B's in the house. Jay Pearson signed up. Hot Rod Roommate. Decency signed up. Ray K. OK, along with Max Webster's in the house. Braveheart 29. DMAC. Boston, Huck G, Ultra Fragile, Freedom for All, Gamers Complete is here, Miss ESC, Miss Escape, Jennifer Delman, Kim So, Roadrunner 60, Little Red Rose, we've got P. Tatum, Miss Marplewise, along with Facts Matter and Ask Why. Don't forget that we have our monthly Locals meetup taking place this Saturday night, February 26th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're a supporter at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, be sure to go mark your calendar for that. It's coming up. And also, don't forget to follow us on Telegram. I am trying to post more sort of about what we're doing throughout the day on the Telegram feed. And so make sure you check that out. One final super chat just came in from Words Means Things. Says, so this was fun. I joined Locals today. The moment I completed my payment, I got a text from my credit card company asking if I really made the purchase. Are you in Canada? Words Mean Things? I've not heard that before, but great. So that means we're on the FinTrack list. Perfect. Well, thanks for supporting us. Thanks for authorizing it and making it go through. All right, my friends, and that is it for us. Shout out to my friends on Twitch. Shout out to my friends on Rumble, wherever else you're watching this, including YouTube and Locals. I really appreciate everybody's support. I would love it if you gave us a like before you head out of here today. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, because we are going to be back here. Do it again tomorrow, and it's going to be probably a spicy one, because, that's the world that we're living in. And I hope you join us. Have a great night, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.